Hello, my name is James Milford. I'm head of school at Maclay School. In this trying time, we've asked ourselves how we could possibly help our community. Well, one way is to try to share some of our expertise on the advanced placement exams. Everything's changed, and we have thousands of students in our community and in our region that have been preparing all year for these exams, and the College Board has changed a lot of things about them. And we also know a lot of students are exposed without the knowledge of what may be coming for them in a few weeks. So as they prepare, we wanted to get a few of our teachers together and share some insights with you. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's beneficial, and good luck on your exams.
Greetings, I'm Charles Beamer, the Upper School Director here at Maclay School, and now we're going to have each panelist introduce themselves.
I'll start off. I'm Les Lundberg, and I am in my 4th year as the AP coordinator.
I'm Kristin Kline. I teach AP Environmental Science.
And I'm Norment. I teach AP English Language, and I'm the English Department Chair.
And I'm Paul Berk. I am the History Department Chair. I teach AP World History Modern, AP US Government and Politics, and AP Microeconomics. I'm also a reader for the AP World Modern exam and serve currently as an exam leader. One of the questions that I know people often ask is, what is AP and why is there such an emphasis in this time of year on what's going on? That's a big question. I think a pretty good answer to that is advanced placement courses are offered by the College Board as a way for students at the high school level to get an experience with a college level in terms of the instruction and the materials. The content is of a much more intense level. The pacing of a AP course is much quicker because it's largely based on how college classes, introductory level classes are taught. In addition to the experiences that students get from instructors and peers, they also have an opportunity at the end of the year to take an EP exam, which in many cases will grant them college credit if they get a passing score, which is a 3 out of 5, a 4 out of 5, or a 5 out of 5. That's one of the main attractions. It allows students to basically take a college course in high school and get credit for it at the institution they attend, freeing them up to take other courses beyond those introductory courses. The scoring of an AP exam is in and of itself an interesting phenomenon. So the two parts of the test are graded separately. The computers will score the multiple choice questions, and AP readers will score by hand the questions that are written by students as free responses. Then those scores are combined to give a score out of a 3, a 4, or a 5. This year, what will be different is instead of multiple choice questions, the courses, the AP exams will feature only free response questions and in a 45-minute time frame as opposed to multiple hours. That will obviously change preparation as well as content. Basically, students will be allowed to compose answers to these free response questions on their phone, on a tablet, on a computer. They'll be able to handwrite responses and take pictures and ultimately submit them to College Board for scoring by readers who will be scoring these things remotely across the United States. The process is actually something College Board has been doing for a few years, grading remotely, so they're prepared to do that in a timely and efficient fashion, so students should get their scores presumably in a time frame that they're used to getting them.
Paul, Lee, let me ask you this. Students, teachers, and coordinators were all hit with, say, a triple whammy this year. Dealing with AP Classroom for the first time, having to switch to online learning, and then the new format all of a sudden hits. In order to keep the AP students from just really freaking out and not knowing how to approach the exam, how have you guys been able to keep things normal on one hand, but also more innovative to keep the kids engaged during this period of online learning?
Yeah, I mean, I think the anxiety surrounding the new format is there. The good thing I think about how all of us plan our AP classes, though, is that really you think of the class as a class, and that taking the test at the end of it, I always tell my kids, that's just gravy, because you're going to get something worthwhile from the experience. And while, you know, the way that you're evaluated at the end of the course has now changed, that really didn't change a whole lot for my class about what we're doing in terms of what we're covering, because I've built the class as a class, keeping in mind the test, but focusing more on creating an environment where students can learn. And so the change in medium is certainly a challenge for all of us, but it really has not thrown an entire monkey wrench into my plans. We're still basically going to cover what we were going to before. We're going to do it a little bit differently, but that's the advantage of thinking about the class as a whole before you really get going, is that they've covered those skills that the test is going to now focus on. And, you know, I'm not super worried about it, and I hope they aren't either.
I would definitely say that that one thing that was really helpful as we've switched to online learning is that AP really took that into account and cut out some of the units that many of the classes were covering. So luckily we came back from spring break and we had a day to plan, and then we hit the ground running with online learning, and we had already covered all of the content that AP says that the exam covers now. So they cut out a couple of units, and we had actually already, before the break, covered all of the new material that we needed to, which means that it really gives us time to still review. But then also, after we review, it's going to give us a couple of weeks to really focus on the changes to the exam, so that hopefully on exam day, none of the kids have any question as to what they're going to be looking at. There shouldn't be any surprises as far as the format, or are there going to be multiple choice questions? Of course not, but it'll really give us some time to talk about the changes to the exam and what they should expect.
So Mrs. Kline, you talked about the student review. What is that review process for each of your exams?
So for my class, at the beginning of the year, along with their books, each student received a review book, and so the last week or so or two, we've been kind of going through unit by unit and covering course material. So because we had already covered all of the course material before the break, we've been using this time to revisit everything. And so in each class, we're just taking a little chunk and kind of rediscussing kind of the most important points from each big topic, so that they've seen it again. And each topic we do in class that we discuss, we also do an FRQ, because the test has become FRQ based. Writing and being able to verbalize what they need to get out has become very, very important.
What exactly is an FRQ for those that know?
Sure.
Free response question, and it takes a different form depending on the AP that you're taking. They can be short answer or multi-step short answer, or essays, full-length essays for the AP. For mine this year, the AP is going to focus on a rhetorical analysis passage where they have to read a piece of nonfiction and then construct an argument about how the writer makes their argument. And one of the other things too about review, I think that all of us build into our classes, is that because of the way that AP really kind of redesigned a lot of their courses over the last couple of years and focused more on enduring understandings and a pretty specific skill breakdown, the good thing is that I think all of us, I'm sure, have been building that into the course all year long. Mm-hmm. So my students have already written 4 rhetorical analyses this year. And we'll do some targeted practice using some release past prompts and things like that before the AP. But because the AP kind of redesigned things recently, it actually, I think, benefited us in this particular instance, because we have been more oriented towards focusing on those enduring understandings and those skills that were clearly delineated by College Board.
And I would argue that this is actually maybe, if this had happened, several years ago, it would have been a much more dire situation for 2 reasons. One is College Board is very good about putting every year's free response questions available on its website for each course with the guidelines that are used to score them, as well as sample essays. So students at their own time, on their own pace, can literally go back and see every year's free response questions previously, as well as how they were scored, and practice materials, examples of how students had done that in the past. That's what I tell my students. That's your first place to go for free response preparation, is College Board is giving you every free response question they've ever asked and showing you how to answer them and explained why they hit the points of the guidelines. The second thing that I think makes this year much easier to deal with this distance learning situation is College Board rolled out what it calls AP Classroom, which is a variety of materials that students can use, again, at their own pace. It allows students to review the kinds of questions that will be on the AP exam, particularly the free response questions. It also gives teachers a chance to score those according to guidelines that have been created by College Board as the way to sort of measure student performance. So this is, again, a situation in which College Board has given students the tools, now that they do have a little bit more time to manage on their own, to approach these practices sort of at their own pace and not feel like they're being overwhelmed. And I would say that College Board is really trying to reach out to students. In addition to setting up the AP Classroom, provided a lot of guidance. I've read, for example, that College Board will allow students to either review or practice the proper submission of responses prior to the exam. In other words, for students who are submitting directly from a computer, as opposed to those who are taking pictures of handwritten responses and emailing those, that College Board is going to provide students with a way to go through that process, at least on some level, because obviously an important part of taking the test is submitting the test. And so that has concerned a lot of students, but College Board has spoken to the idea that they're going to make sure students feel comfortable in being able to not only complete the work in the fashion and the time they need, but also to submit that work, which will allow them to get the scores that they want.
Yeah, and the videos they've been producing, actually I spent this weekend looking through the ones they've done for AP Lang, and if those are if those represent what they're doing for the other disciplines, I thought that those were done really well. And that's another free resource that students can easily look at. The one I watched literally walked them through how to answer rhetorical analysis and gave some really good tips and things like that. So, I think this is not going to be a matter of a lack of resources available to them. I think one of the things I'm going to try to focus on in my review is to streamline some of that for them and to give them some more targeted approaches so that they don't feel overwhelmed by the amount of help that they have access to, because that's definitely there in a way that really hasn't been in years past. So that's a good thing.
So if each of you had 2 important tips to give to students to prepare for the AP exams, what would they be?
I would say be sure to look at the course page for your particular exam and review the free response questions from previous years. Practicing those and sort of writing response and then grading themselves on the response they write is a really good way to do it. And then I would also encourage them to take advantage of AP Classroom as much as they can. It's a great resource for allowing students to see the kinds of questions and get experience with the kinds of documents that they'll need or the kinds of math they'll have to do. And particularly for students who take multiple AP exams, using that AP Classroom resource is a way to make sure that they feel comfortable in how they approach the test and know that they have some experience with it, even if it's their first AP.
I would definitely say, and this I'm sure that Les would echo, I would definitely say make sure that you check your email. College Board is sending out really, really important updates, including information about practice questions and video tutorials, and you absolutely want to make sure that you get that information from them and you test to make sure that you know how to submit your exam, because that would be really terrible to take the exam and then not know how to submit it. So definitely make sure that you're watching your email for emails from College Board. And just be confident. I mean, we've all seen this information. It's all stuff that's been covered. So don't panic just because it looks different than you expected. A 45-minute chunk of time is a whole lot more manageable than a 3 or 4 hour exam. So take your knowledge and put it to use.
Yeah, I'd echo that totally. My number one tip would be to relax. especially if you've been to an AP class here at Maclay. You're ready right now. You could have taken it 2 months ago and been fine probably. And the second piece of advice is to the good thing about AP is it does generally reward thoughtfulness. So if you can demonstrate your thoughtfulness, no matter what exam you're taking, you will get some points on it. And everybody can do that by this point.
And I'll say one more thing from my position as somebody who's been a reader for more than 10 years of the AP World Exam. I would say that Lee is exactly correct, that in my experience of going through thousands of responses, whether they're essays or short responses, I know that readers are trained, they're professional, they're empathetic. And this year particularly, they're going to recognize the extreme circumstances in which students are being, requiring themselves to not only prepare, but also take the exams. The AP program does an excellent job of training its readers to make sure that they give students the credit that they have earned in writing their responses. That part students should definitely feel confident about. This is something that when they get their tests done and they get them ready to go, we'll make sure that those scores reflect the work that they've done, the skills that they've demonstrated, and the effort that they've put in.
And not only the readers understand what's happening, but so do colleges and universities all over the country. They know that this is a unique situation, and they are very willing to take the scores of these tests for the value that the kids have put in. The teachers have worked hard, the kids have worked hard, and I think that exactly what Kristin said, they need to go into this very confident that they are prepared, they've been preparing all year long, and they will do just fine. My pieces of advice come more from the coordinator standpoint of making sure, as Kristin said, making sure that you are receiving College Board emails. You can go into your profile and change that email if you want to. If you are not receiving these emails and updates from College Board, you also need to make sure if you transferred into your school, make sure that you have changed your school on your profile. That I actually went through that with one of our students just recently who had transferred in the semester. Still had the old school listed, so took 5 seconds to change it, and everything was updated. So make sure the profile and account settings are updated, and watch for those tutorials coming out from College Board. We're learning all of this together. All of these rollouts are coming. So College Board is doing a great job, and just be patient. Wait for those updates to come. Make sure that you're reading through everything very thoroughly, and you will be prepared.
A big thank you to Mrs. Lundberg, to Mr. Norment, Dr. Berk, and Mrs. Kline for your time. And to everyone else, we wish you well on your AP exam. Have a great evening.